Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So today we're gonna have Elle Jones. I think she's already here, so that's great. So I'll introduce you Elle first, and then we can begin our session.
PowerPoint.
This is part of our series. We're I think I said it in the last Kumi session that we're creating a book or a collection of articles and art and things like this called Reimagining Pilgrimage Amidst Genocide. So we've been inviting participants from Sabil's delegations to really reflect on this theme. And so we've asked some of these participants who have contributed really great and amazing work to speak on Kumi. And Elle Jones is one of them. Elle is a really good friend of Sabil, and she's a poet, journalist, professor and activist living in Nova Scotia, and she's graciously given her time again. I know she was in a Kumi session, I think either earlier this year or last year, to talk a little bit about her poetry, but today she's gonna continue reflecting on this theme of art and witness. So thank you so much, Elle, for giving your time, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm trying to share this PowerPoint. I don't
Yeah,
know
no
if
worries. I think I should have given you you're able to share, but I can give you co-host
okay,
permission.
hang
So
on. I think I got it. Hang on.
okay, awesome.
Okay. Uh Let me sorry guys for the awkward staring into the what happened? Where did it go? I don't know what just happened. I just got a crazy screen.
Wait,
I'm
let me.
screen
Okay, I think
oh,
we were able to see your presentation now.
okay, but let me go to the beginning. Sorry. My computer does not like this slideshow. Um Sorry guys. I'm trying to scroll down. It doesn't want to go to slideshow from play from start. Okay. No. Come on, you can do it. I've got the wheel of death. Okay, can you guys all see?
Yes, we're able to see now.
All right. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon for me, wherever you are, evening. Thank you so much for having me. As Tan said, my name's Elle Jones. I live here in Jabuktuk, Halifax, in Canada, East Coast Canada, Nova Scotia. I went on a Sabile delegation in January, so almost a year ago. Um, and I was going to do something a bit different. I'm going to share poems with you, but as I was going through my slide camera roll, I found some pictures. So I actually made a little highlight slideshow. Also, some of the things I saw in Palestine, but then some of the actions that we've undertaken since we got back, some of which are accompanied by poems. So I thought I'd maybe walk you through witness through protest and poetry. Before I do the first poem, which is the poem dedicated to Sabile, I'm just going to take you through some images up to that point, and then I'm going to do that poem, and then we'll go forward from there. Because I talk about some of these events and images in the poem, so I thought if you saw it, then you could picture what I was talking about. So this is actually from the first night we were in Palestine here. This is at the Ramallah Cultural Center. And we were there around Christmas. So January 5th is when we got there, and Sabile was putting on a play about if Christ was born in Gaza. And so we were invited to see the performance at this play at this beautiful cultural center. I was also able to perform a poem before the play. So it was a beautiful exchange that took place. So that's just my first kind of piece. I don't know if it's going to go forward. Okay. This is just some of the art in Ramallah. And one of the things that I ended up taking a lot of pictures of was just throughout the West Bank, just the amount of art that was everywhere, whether it was commemorating people, whether it was celebrating culture, speaking up against the genocide. You just saw everywhere people using whatever it was to create beautiful images and art and change the environment. So this is just one example. This is from Yafa when we were on the Nakba walk, and they were showing us the evidence of how Palestine existed long before Israel and the myth about a land with no people or Palestinians didn't develop the land. So this is part of the sewage system from Palestine. It says like Palestine on the grating, right? But you could also see how beautifully designed it is as well. So just another piece. So as we were walking through, we were being shown this history as well. So that's in Yafa. This is Christmas in Palestine. So this is in Jerusalem, I think one of the restaurants that we were in, and was a Christmas display. And then many people I'm sure are familiar with the Jerusalem Santa. Issa, also a former member of the Palestinian national basketball team. So people who are there, I'm jealous of you right now who get to see Jerusalem Santa. But these moments of joy and light, again, amid so much oppression, that remind us of part of witnessing genocide is also to witness joy and humanity and all the many things that people bring in these circumstances. This is in the poem. This is Issa Amro. I'm sure many people have been there. So this is the sign in his house, the Free Palestine olive tree. I think there's many images of this that have been circulated because it's such a powerful image of resistance and survival. I was asking him, like, don't the soldiers like see this when they come? And he's like, yeah, like so, they have to deal with it. And you can also see his Ben Gvir stickers. This is more from Issa. So this is the Free Palestine. So again, just that claiming of space within his home and the complete like resistance and refusal to bow down in any way. And this is in the cultural center where we were also served meals. So I don't eat meat, but they had cooked chicken in traditional manners. And that's part of what was happening in the community center. People were also coming in, having been on basically community patrol. So a lot of the young men that go and guard the homes. So one of the things, if you're not familiar, that Issa Amro lives in Hebron up in the hills, is that they take back homes. So they go and live in the homes. So they find families willing to do it. And then they basically protect those homes 24/7 and keep the settlers away. So there's this communal act of claiming. They do things like hold monthly birthday parties for all the kids. They, support education. They do all kinds of escorting. So it's like keeping the community safe and building community so that people can stay and resist where they are. And so this image on the right of the Genocide Convention is painted on the wall in the community center. And there was communal meals there and everything. So you really saw a community that was making sure that it could not only survive, but like thrive and continue to support each other. So that's part of Issa's home. This is Umm Khair. So in the news, part of people are obviously familiar with No Other Land and Maseret Yafa. Khair has been scheduled many homes for demolition. I think 11 more homes have been scheduled for demolition. So again, just something really current right now. But again, even amid the grief, like the beauty of this image and this is the father of the community. We met with Eid. This is his father who had been run over and murdered by a settler. So just these signs of remembrance and grief, but also the building from that and the refusal to buckle to that was really powerful to me. This is Al-Aqsa. I think the windows are showing how they've been broken by the IDF, like rappelling up to shoot into them. And you could also see how empty the mosque is because like they don't give people permission to go in there. This was I took a lot of pictures of cats and dogs when I was there. I'm an animal lover. This is the fierce guardian of the Armenian quarter. It was very funny because they had a big dog that was like such a baby that like did not do any guarding at all. And then this little chihuahua was so fierce. And so he was just so, I mean, it was just so funny that you had this like tiny dog that just was like guarding the quarter from us. But I mean, I think it is a bit of a David and Goliath message there, right? And then also the big dog, they're like, we don't want him to be mean because like we like him, he gives us comfort. So you again, like just the generosity towards all creatures, the love for everybody that lives on the land, but also like no matter how small you are, you can be resistant, as this little chihuahua shows us. This is in Jerusalem. We had a tour from, I had requested actually, I wanted to meet Afro-Palestinians. I'm in Africa, Nova Scotia, and one of the sort of myths, I don't know if people saw recently that Henry Louis Gates has just created a propaganda piece like Jewish people and Black people. So one of the avenues of propaganda is always the idea that like Black people should be Zionists, particularly through Christianity. And then the idea like there was at the time when I was in Palestine, there was circulating at the time a bit of propaganda that Palestinians are anti-Black and they have a ghetto in Gaza called Slave. And, it's like, okay, but if that were true, they would still be getting murdered by Israel, right? But there was a lot of propaganda around Palestinians are anti-Black and Black people shouldn't support them. So I had wanted to meet with Afro-Palestinians and we did a tour with Mahmoud, who took us around Old Jerusalem. And one of his jokes was Israel doesn't want peace, they want piece by piece. And then we passed this building that said, take a piece of Jerusalem. So that was one of the pictures. This is just in the market in Old Jerusalem. This is Silwan. I think people are also very familiar with this. Again, so like the art all over the community. Eyewitness Silwan. I know you see this with like the Fosna images, for example, of the blind man getting sight. So this is Eyewitness Silwan, where they take the buildings and put images of eyes, particularly eyes of famous people, and the eyes look back upon occupation. So you see like Shireen Abu Akleh's eyes, Malcolm X's eyes are here. I think Eric Garner's eyes are here. Desmond Tutu. So there's different eyes that are painted on these walls. And so we went to see that. This is in Aida refugee camp, image of Shireen Abu Akleh. Loreen, her niece, was one of the people that was so kindly guiding us around. I talk about this in the poem, Hope on the Wall. This is seen from the Cultural Center in Aida refugee camp. So we were made Maklufi, the upside down dish. So we were fed a beautiful meal, and we got to see this beautiful space created where his parents' homes had been. And again, just all the effort made in the refugee camp. And we hear about it in the poem I'm about to read. This is also Aida, the We Will Return image. And then, of course, I'm sure people are familiar with the wall in Bethlehem and the amount of art that is on that wall as well. So reclaiming that wall from occupation. All right. Oh, and this is the Palestine Bioethical Institute, Massim Kassir. I'm sorry, I can't say his name. Mazim, why am I blanking on his name? Anyway, the Palestine Bioethical Biodiversity Institute. That's what I'm trying to say. So the preservation of Palestinian history and also things like Palestinian seed, Palestinian species. So recognizing, as he said very powerfully, that colonization doesn't just destroy human life, it destroys the life of all kinds of species. And so part of the Institute is reclaiming seed, reclaiming flowers, reclaiming different animals. I also petted a hyena. I should have put that picture up. I petted Habibi, the hyena, which everybody was mad at me about. Everybody told me to move my hand and she wasn't a pet, but she actually licked me because I love animals and animals love me. And even if she had bitten me, it would have been worth it. So I still tell people about petting the hyena. It was a very exciting moment for me, but she was rescued from the desert. All right, so I'm going to pause there and do a poem, and then I'm going to tell you a bit more. But I wanted you to see some of the images that influenced this poem. Okay, here we go. If I had a key and I couldn't return, I would turn from the world and let it all burn. But that's not what I saw in Aida refugee camp, where despite cramped conditions, on the walls art was stamped. Every person a lamp, with a kindness that shines with resolve only found behind enemy lines. To the cultural center, the IDF came, waging psychological games, invaded the office where children would play, paraded in hostages to interrogate, thought they could turn what was safety to fear through their hate. But the heart is a gate that again and again Palestinians left open in the face of a state that deems them as waste, yet they always refuse. We make every day more beautiful, they said, for our youth. And political prisoners tortured and abused said we felt only resolve, and we know we can't lose, for all that they have is the soul of a boot and a land that they loot, but they cannot belong, for you cannot beat right on the side of the wrong. On the streets of Hebron, in a downtown like ghosts, 400 settlers defended by 4,000 armed folks, I walk behind Omar while Omar cracks jokes. He stands strong like an oak, so their efforts are smoke. For he cannot be broken, and nor will he run, while soldiers and militias taunt us with guns, and they send us from checkpoint to checkpoint for fun. And soldiers say what they will, and it will be done. But up in the hills, they still have not won. For the signs say Free Palestine beside olive trees, and surrounded by sandbags, the women cook meals, and as an aside, everyone has a tragedy. This one's son taken this morning, that one's arm broken twice, everyone arrested at least one or more times, and a 17-year-old neighbor who looks through a scope. But like on the wall of the refugee camp, I read hope. Amid concrete they smuggled to build up their homes. In the place where the earth holds their ancestors' bones, they cannot be thrown, and they do not have doubts, for they know there's no choice but to wait armies out. And they know there's no choice but to resist and to stand, for you cannot be bowed when you belong to the land. And though they uproot the trees and they sand all the soil, they can't bend a spirit that will never be spoiled. Palestinian girls and boys raised with courage and grace. I had Tamimi who slapped a soldier in his face, and they threatened with rape and responded with rage. And they can lock the bars and take years and days. They can say human animals, bomb, kill, and cage. And there's bones they can break, and horrors much worse. Genocide live streamed to transmit to the world, but make no mistake, Palestinians won't fold. And it's us who has lost whatever humanity we hold. They forbid buildings on land. People live in the caves. And they say that close to the soil only makes them more brave. Settlers burn down the trees, set dogs off their leashes. They destroy human life and all kinds of species, bring salt to the earth and rubble and ash, yet they still can't possess not one blade of the grass. And the trees will replant, and there'll be keys in the latch, because when a state rules by violence, they're already outmatched. To a victim of torture, we asked, how do you endure? And he says, when you know you are right, then it burns at your core. And though they use violence, it's just a dull sword. And so they cannot win, and we will be restored. And I know that it's true, because the message was clear in everyone who's working through terror and despair and the things that they live through. It pains you to hear. Yet every checkpoint, every prison, they will disappear. Thank you. So that's a recounting of so many of the things I learned and saw at Sabeel. I'm gonna now keep going. So I was going through my phone and I found a bunch of images. Initially, I was going to do something else with you, and then I thought I'd maybe show you just some of the impact and how we witness and the different stuff that takes place in the community. They're not in great order because it was kind of a down and dirty PowerPoint. Okay, so on the left, this is a poster for Palestinian land exercise. I don't know if we have any members of Just Peace working group here. So this is built on something called the blanket exercise. Canadians will be familiar with this. So it was an exercise developed by the United Church and the Mennonite Church, using blankets to do this experiential, immersive experience of showing people the experience of being colonized. So that has been adapted into a Palestinian land exercise. So I joined that team. And so we've been able to present the exercise at a number of universities, churches, community groups. On the right, that's some of my students that also took part in presenting the land exercise at my university, Mount St. Vincent University. And this is them on, there was a cultural day. So they created a Palestinian table, which I think is just a powerful act of resistance. So part of this is like, you can do big things, right? But sometimes it's these really small but important things. So a day where they had different international student groups, and the students made sure that there was a Palestine table. And one of the beautiful things is all the stuff on this table is from a store called Tal Al Zitoun, Palestinian grocery that's actually not far from my university. You'll see in a bit, when I was doing convocation, I wanted a Palestinian store. And I asked around where I could get one, and somebody told me, well, go to Tal Al Zitoun, he has this stuff. And when I went in, he wouldn't let me pay. And in fact, I was going to buy more stuff. And then I was like grabbing stuff and trying to pay for it. And he was like, no, you're a friend of Palestine, just take it, and wouldn't let me pay, which is like so Palestinian. And everything on this table was also donated by him. And so they were able to give the students like Palestinian food. And you see drinks, there's an alternate to Coke. So I think that was just a really powerful moment and really brave of our students to just make Palestine part of everything. And they were also part of the land exercise. This is some images from the land exercise. This is one we did at Acadia, which is about an hour away from us. I got an honorary doctorate there last year. And I did make sure I spoke about Palestine in the convocation address I gave. It turned out there was quite a bit of discussion whether I'd have the guts to do it. And obviously I was going to. I didn't even think it was a question. But people had been sort of placing some bets on whether I'd go for it or not. But I spoke about Palestine in my address, and I've kept a relationship with Acadia. I used to teach there like years ago, but since then I've come in to do a lot of like Palestine events with the students and staff. So this is like the land exercise. You can see part of the script on the left, and you'll note that it's the story of Shadi Khoury, so the grandson. Many of you are obviously familiar. Um, so his testimony is used as part of this play. So what it is it's a play that takes the participants through the history of the founding of Israel, so the history of Palestine. So it begins on like you're on this green blanket and everybody walks around and they talk about how before Israel everybody lived here together, there's a long history. And then they take you through like the Balfour Declaration, the different history, and then the green gets taken off and it turns into Israel, which is the red, and people get increasingly squished into these small areas. So that becomes like the West Bank, and people have to sit down because they've been killed in the Nakba or they've been sent to prison. So there's throughout the interacting, and then there's different scripts read by Palestinians explaining the history. I don't know if I'm giving you a great explanation. It's kind of hard to explain, but this is the part of the script. So you can see the words of Shadi Khoury. And then when you're facilitating, it says like those I touch on the shoulders sit down. You represent the thousands in prison. So then people have to go and sit. And this is one of the students. You can see they are in prison. You can see the wall is up. The West Bank has been reduced to those little green spots. The wall has been put in. So this is one of the things that we do. And then afterwards there's a talking circle and people discuss. A lot of people obviously never knew the history. They were fed one version of the history. So it's a really immersive way for them to learn the history, to hear the words of Palestinians, to hear the impact, and then feel it like in their own bodies and selves as well. And you can see there's quite a lot that goes into the creation of it. That's in Gaza. So children lying under the rubble, they have to like bombard the children. This is obviously on the right, the wall. Canada Park is there. So one of the things we also talk about is Canada's involvement. So we talk about the bulldozing of villages and how one of those villages a few of those villages actually become Canada Park, and Canadians donate money for trees, and Palestinians aren't allowed to visit that park. You can see like the bulldozer, the wall section. So it's very interactive and like uses this way of being immersed to teach that history and experience. Then we ask them stuff like if it's youth, we ask them, how would you feel if you were a Palestinian? Like, how would you resist? What if you were Israeli and you had to join and you were like being conscripted into the IDF? Like, would you join? What would you do? So we talk to especially young people around those issues. These are some of our protest things. So on the left, that's Warmongers Out of Halifax. There's this thing called the Security Forum, the Halifax International Security Forum, that takes place in Halifax. This year, we were blessed with the presence of Ehud Barak, among others. I'm going to do a poem for you in a minute about that. And then on the right, this is there's a factory near us in Lunenburg, about an hour away. It's also where Christmas trees come. There's a lot of Christmas trees in Lunenburg, and genocide. So there's a Stelia factory that manufactures parts for F-35s that are used to like bomb, obviously, in Palestine. So because we're in the city, there's a lot of rural areas that don't have as much, obviously, involvement. So we're trying to do more organizing within rural communities. So we went up a couple of Saturdays ago. There was a big event and just bringing in people and talking about this factory in the community. And these are actually art pieces that were created so people could take away the poster. So it says, "Neighbors don't let neighbors manufacture genocide." And then on the left is, like I said, the Warmongers Conference. I'm going to do a poem in a second. And then this is actually very funny because like sometimes you have to have fun when you're protesting. I actually brought this back. So when the very first security forum was in like 2008, the anarchists held a pig run because they also hold a 5K run. So like all the war criminals go and run through Point Pleasant Park, and the anarchists held a pig run. So I revived the pig run this year. So you can see that the young people are out. So this is like 7 in the morning, and they have signs like "You run, you hide from your genocide." And like the people are running by, and they're holding up signs. They were kind of like blocking them. Um, So running away from your war crimes. So I mean, it's funny and also again like really brave and creative. So the banner, they only found out about this. I only told them about the history of the pig run the night before, and they like mobilized to get these banners out. And like the videos are actually very funny too. They're like yelling at the runners, and so just a really good example of disruption and bringing things like straight to people. We have a really good banner crew. We always have good banners. Okay, I'm going to pause there and read you my security forum poem. So we try to bring, when you're having a protest, as you may guess, like it's cold in Halifax, first of all. So often you're freezing cold. So we try to keep them short. We try to not have, hours and hours of people making really long speeches and then everybody's, getting really restless and then people aren't even participating. So we try to keep them like condensed. But this is my poem from Security Forum. So it takes place in this hotel called the Westin. They rent out like the entire hotel. They put snipers on the roof, like it's completely securitized. It basically becomes a mini West Point like West Bank checkpoint in the middle of our city. There's like massive security, and then they just bring in all these warmongers. And the theme this year was democracy designs doodads or something like that. They kept using all these D's for the panels, and they'll have all these disgusting panels. Ehud Barak was a featured speaker this year who was given like numerous keynote speeches. Hamas commits sexual violence. It was like that organization was there. They have all kinds of Israelis. They pledge, loyalty to Israel and to create more and more. I could go on and on about it, but I'll just do the poem. So this is the poem that I did there. Dick Cheney's finally deceased. He died at home in peace. He lied about WMDs and murdered millions of Iraqis. Don't forget Guantanamo Bay, where he sanctioned torture night and day, all for the oil that got him paid. He shot his friend right in the face. And if you refuse to mourn these ghouls who brought death, destruction, and abuse, who even cut off baby food, they'll try to get your job removed. Henry Kissinger lived a century outside the penitentiary, a war criminal incidentally who should live on in infamy. Instead, in his obituary, they sung his praises tenderly. His crimes are wiped from memory, but we're labeled the enemy. And inside where warmongers sip champagne, they named a prize for John McCain, who led civilian bombing campaigns, another war criminal who should be shamed. But it's you and I who face arrest and trial. Ehud Barak is in the Epstein files. He raped young girls on Epstein's Isles. Virginia Giuffre died by suicide, yet he's invited here to speak. A rapist, genocidal freak, exposed like all the other elites, who sit inside and laugh and feast on all the wars they dream up next, to keep their boots upon our necks. They know warmongering pays their checks, they traffic bombs and lies and sex, and they should all be in a cell as a prelude to their time in hell. Instead, they lounge inside hotels and backslap other clientele who pledge loyalty to Israel and sign their names upon the shells that land on hospitals and wells. Eternal war is what they sell. And yet, they label us extreme for protesting their war machine and millions of dollars to police to stop us opposing their regime. The least we can do is show disgust and refuse to keep their horrors hushed. The baby skulls that they have crushed, they murder everything they touch. And justice never will be served, perhaps by God in another world. But don't we find it so absurd? They die in peace and undisturbed. So that poem's called Disturbing the Peace, and just a little rally poem. I just keep moving. I don't know how much time we have, so I don't want to take too long. You can see I said I wanted a Palestinian soul for graduation, another like small act of resistance. So sometimes we're screaming poems at the war criminals with like snipers pointing at us and lines of police. And sometimes we're just at our graduation. So I'm faculty at Mount St. Vincent University. And I decided I wanted to wear a Palestinian stole from the stage because obviously the faculty in the back of the stage. So I got the stole, as I said, from Tal Al Zitoun. The number of Muslim students that came up to me, hugging me, all the brown students, like it actually was really beautiful because people like I couldn't believe someone was like brave enough to wear that on stage. Like all these people were coming up and just thanking me, especially again, like a lot of our Muslim students and their families. But just really appreciated seeing it. And then it was funny because some people knew who I was. So they were like, I saw this thing on stage. And I was like, oh, who would do that? And then like I realized it was you. So it was just really effective. So a thing, just also things we can do. We're moving to a different protest here. This is the Davis Cup protest on the right. So somebody flew a kite that says end complicity. This was actually a really successful action. So we actually got, I shouldn't say we, I'm just involved. I didn't do the grant, but he got funding next year during the Outdoor Art Festival to do this again. So it's going to be kites flying with messages that we can put. And so a number of poets have been enlisted. So another really great example of like using arts and words. So flying kites with these messages. But this is during the Davis Cup. So this was a tennis match between Israel and Canada that was held in my city in Halifax in September. So the security forum, I think, is also relevant here because we're pretty sure that the part of the reason we got this stupid match is the mayor promised that since we are able to successfully host the security forum and we regularly host war criminals, we obviously have the security to host Israel. So we had a number of protests. We had to go to City Hall. They wanted to fund this. We were pushing back on them funding it, like giving them any money. So you can see here, this is a net and like tennis balls with blood on them, and it says like genocide won't play here. They were actually sent to us from Toronto, so people in Toronto went and protested at Tennis Canada wearing like bloody tennis whites and then sent us through this stuff for our protests. That's a puppet of the mayor, Zionist puppet. The arts has gotten in so much trouble for this. They made a Andy Fillmore head and put it on a tennis racket, and that was accused of being like a lynching effigy, and people got doxxed over that. This is the Grannies for Peace outside the hotel where they're staying. So they created a little camp. This is at City Hall. So it's the shoes of the number of children that would be killed during the time of the Davis Cup. So in the 2 days that the match was being held, 65 children would have died in Gaza. So those children's shoes were collected and brought to City Hall, and we attempted to deliver them to the mayor. We refused delivery. He said we had to put them in a box. So you can see various actions. That's one of protest. As you can see, Halifax says no Team Israel at Davis Cup, March for Palestine. So we held like a number of events. I'm going to read my poem from that, and then we're getting close to the end of this, I promise. So this is a sort of last minute effort. I will say that successfully. So because they got scared of our protest, because obviously we bought a bunch of tickets and we were obviously going to go in and protest and like wave Palestine flags and scream genocide and baby killer and stuff. So they knew that was going to happen. So they had to shut down the match, and they didn't allow any people to come to the match. There was no spectators. It had to be played in silence. They also didn't sell any tickets because no one was interested. And then like because there was no spectators, they had to give back all the funding because the funding was predicated on the idea that it was bringing tourism to Halifax. But when they shut out spectators, we went back and were like, yeah, but now the funding's illegal. So they had to give back all the money they got. So we didn't shut down the match entirely, but we were able to like create a big embarrassment. They had to hold this match in complete silence, which is appropriate. So here was my poetry effort. Last poem, and then I'll show you a couple more things, then we're done. Tennis Canada, how do you sleep at night? The blood won't wash from tennis whites. And when the history of this time's described, it will record you chose the side of starvation, murder, and war crimes. You chose the soldier over the child. And closed doors matches cannot hide your complicity with genocide. You tried with all your power and might to force this match on Halifax. You lied and said we planned attacks. Even the police dispute your facts. You took the dollars from our tax and promised blood money in the bank. And when you could not push us back, when we provide the thing you lack, empathy for human life, you could not silence Palestine. You close your eyes to tents on fire while soldiers wearing women's undergarments stolen from homes under bombardment brag about choosing journalists as targets and shoot soccer players in the thighs, deliberately to paralyze. A baby cut from a mother's womb as she lies dead from missile strike, and then you call our protest violent? You've earned yourselves the world's contempt. No tickets sold, embarrassment. It turns out there's no appetite for blood sports for entertainment. Your reputation pays the price, and now your match is played in quiet. A silent shame with none to clap except our mare to slap your back. Two cowards equally bereft of anything beating in your chest that approximates a human heart. And when you both lie in the dark and contemplate what you have dealt, know that history won't forget how you stood on the side of death. And while justice is not swift, it bends. And one day you will stand condemned, and you will never pay the debt. And may your nightmares be possessed. You had a chance to do what's right. Instead, you chose to sacrifice whatever might be a soul inside for profits that don't materialize. Got nothing back when you allied yourself with Israel's genocide. And know this truth that cannot hide: blood will not wash from tennis whites. So, little moral uh, approbation there. This is Dalhousie University, our flagship university. This is part of the Al Zaytun encampment. This is a really beautiful exhibition that took place at my university. Look to the Skies, a Palestinian artist, Jude Abu Zena, and as part of the exhibition, she taught the chef how to cook Palestinian food at the university, and then a Palestinian feast of makluf and other things was offered as part of the exhibit. So that's a really beautiful act that she actually taught the chef and our staff how pass on Palestinian culture. And part of the exhibit was her giving her grandmother's recipe as well. So preserving. This is just one of our Davis Cup posters. You can see Game Set Genocide. We're creative. This is actually from the person, I said it in the poem, you chose the soldier of the child. This is an image that my friend Ronnie Geckman often uses and has on the door of his office. So he's a colleague of mine that actually was a member of the IDF and then conscientiously objected. So he was in Lebanon in 82. And when he was there, he realized what he was doing was wrong and became a conscientious objector. And for many years, he's been quite silent about it, not because he doesn't want to speak about it, but he always talks about, he says, he calls it a genre of Israelis shooting and crying. And so he feels like he shouldn't take up space by talking about it. I've been encouraging him to speak more because I think it's an important point that you can transform, right? That somebody who grew up in Israel, who took part in the IDF, he said he had doubts before he was in the IDF, but didn't have the courage, and then was able to leave. I think that's a really important narrative. So I've been encouraging him, among others, to speak more. And this is one of his favorite images. So I share it here as well. So when I was going to Sabeel, he was very helpful. He sat down and told me a bit about the geography and was very, I think, invested in me going as well. And he's been a really good support in the school. So I've been able to do a lot of what I'm doing because we have a lot of anti-Zionist Jews on faculty. So unlike other universities that have been, fired people being quite violent, I think my campus, part of the reason why I've been able to do what I do is there's been anti-Zionist Jews that have been very strong on pushing back. And Ronnie is one of them. And I really respect his work, and that's his image. This is just, because as I said, joy is important. This is me and Randy at a conference. Randy was wrongfully convicted and spent 8 years in prison. So this is just us giving a talk. And I just want to tie that issue into Palestine as well. Obviously, the issue of prisons, speaking up for prisoners. Randy's very funny because I gave him a keffiyeh from Ida refugee camp, and then he wore it in Montreal. And everyone was like, why are you, he was with his family, and they're like, why are you wearing that? He's like, just watch, it will open doors. And then everywhere he went, all the Palestinian stores and Arabs were giving them free stuff. And he went to the club wearing it, and everyone was buying him drinks. They just loved seeing him wearing it. So it's very funny. But that's just a moment of joy of us together talking about liberation after 8 years, how we were able to get Randy free. He was exonerated, and that was a very long battle, and something that, again, in the poem, the first poem I talk about talking to political prisoners, that was really powerful because a lot of the work I do is with people in prison, unjustly and otherwise. So, I think that just shows some of the joy we feel upon liberation, and that can be in this world if we work. We worked we lost so many appeals, so much went on in that case, and we finally won. So we lose 100 times when we win one, and it brings us deep joy. And finally, not finally, this is just a panel at, I think this is also Acadia. This is when I got back. So just sharing the witness from Sabeel. That's Tarek on the left, a Palestinian, and this is a Palestinian prof from Acadia. So there's been a lot of opportunities for solidarity and Palestinian people being backed up and being able to come forward because more and more of us are obviously stepping forward and sharing. This is me because I think I'm funny. This is just from a couple of days ago. I love writing people letters. I write my MP and stuff all the time. This is just me using satire, Omar style. So students at NASCAD were trying to hold a Palestine teach-in. The university disciplined them. So I wrote this like satiric letter that got published. The title is Urgent Learning Breaks Containment Barriers at NASCAD. Public must avoid the area. And I'm just being sarcastic and being like, I'm so glad you're preventing the students from learning. Like, keep it up. So it's just me being funny. So I'm like, might I suggest you ban all public lectures and conferences while disciplining students for booking space where we can teach into relevant global issues is a good start. I hear some faculty may be attempting to spread education. So I'm being sarcastic. And finally, just to say, and small victories, this is from my tenure application. I had a formal complaint against me for being a rabid anti-Semite. And this is my department backing me up. So in my application for tenure, you'll notice that they say that special recognition should be given. And they talk about going to the West Bank. And I think that's a victory as well. Because so often we feel like we have to hide our activism for Palestine and not be vocal about it. I've always gone with the idea that if we normalize speaking about Palestine, we push back on the idea that it's something we should be ashamed of. So I just talk about it in my class. Like, if it comes up, I talk about it. If it's relevant, I talk about it. And I felt really pleased that my department backed that up and put it into my tenure like approval that it deserves special notice. And I think that says something for the school as well. And I hope it opens up for more people to talk about politics. So I'll stop there. I know that was probably long, but I wanted to show you, I guess, some of the effects and just some of the stuff we're doing and some of the different ways that people resist. So I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like you touched on so many different layers of themes through your presentation, especially in the way that art and creativity can really retake space. And you really showed that not only just in your time in Palestine, but also in the activism and kind of the ideas you're giving us, I think, in terms of how we can really integrate creativity in the work that we're doing. So thank you so much for also just integrating that with your poetry. I think that was really helpful. And I think this is a good lead in into maybe more of this, this part of the session where we often talk about action and how you've been able to integrate creativity. So I wonder if you could go through your process more about, you know, a lot of the examples you shared were really creative, right? Like from the simulation, for example, with Palestine, someone asked, I mean, the similarity with reintegration after incarceration, that's a simulation, poverty simulations people do. So I wonder if you could talk more about kind of how these ideas have come about, um, what suggestions you have for people who want to take some of that, your lessons of creativity in their own contexts. Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you want to
I mean,
reflect a little bit more on that.
that's very Omar too. I think that's like at the heart of Sabeel. I think that's something that Issa, Omar, everybody we talked to really talked about the importance of being creative in your activism, like meeting the moment, not doing the same thing over and over, like finding the places, um, which I think I knew, but it was really helpful to, I think, have renewed. So like it is a creative act. Because like obviously we do the thing like you hold the weekly protest, but then people get burned out on that. And so I think it's also finding ways to so one thing I actually wanted to do, but I don't know if we have time for it this year. We have this like group called the Raging Grannies who sings. So I wanted them to like write carols about Palestine that we would like go and do caroling and hand out stuff about the West Bank while people are Christmas shopping. You know what I mean? Like so, and I was like, nobody's gonna arrest like a bunch of grannies. So we have these like old grannies. If we go to the mall and the grannies start singing, like, are they really gonna like push them out? So in that moment, I think it's, yeah, like, and this is something that Sabeel very much teaches, like what is happening and how can you use that moment to your advantage in that sense. So if people are Christmas shopping, they're going to do that anyway. So why not hand them out flyers about, are you aware that like Beit Sahur, like you're listening to a carol about the shepherds. Do you know that Shepherd's Field is being bulldozed right now? So if you want to buy, like, do that, why don't you, maybe 1% of 100 responds, but I think it also keeps us fresh and then that you can have some fun with it. Like we're doing very serious things. Obviously, like there's a lot of spirit draining, a lot of despair, a lot of anger. So sometimes it's just like when you're kicking ideas around. An idea that like got rejected that I really wanted to do is I like satire. So I was going to I had this idea to do the Ben Gavir fan club, and my idea was that every time that they like screen the like October 7th documentaries or something, that we would show up as like the Ben Gavir's fan club and just like be like just say all the stuff Ben Gavir says. Like so and then be like, why do you have a problem with it? It's what Ben Gvir says. Like, don't you support that? So that was like my idea that, like, if instead of like protesting at the synagogue where they get really mad, that you'd just be like, I'm the Ben Gvir fan club and I'm here to support this. Like, I totally support selling all this land criminally and like, but saying like all the Smotrich quotes and stuff, that's an idea I've like been trying to rope people into. Because like, I feel like so often we're just like so serious and so like why not use satire to like reflect people back to themselves, and I think it also like enlivens us a bit when we're trying to organize. But I mean, yeah, I think it also there's a lot of creative talent. So I don't know if that's the answer, but like I think it even just thinking up ideas. Later, what the Davis Cup, something I thought of later that I wish we'd done is I wish we'd like dressed up as IDF soldiers and like showed up at the hotel they were staying at and being like, we really want to meet the 10, like we're fans and like have like dead babies. Like, I don't know, like I just think that sometimes I really like using people's words against them, and I think that you have an opportunity to do that. So I think we can do a lot of different stuff and work on all different angles. So yeah, sorry, that's a long answer, but
Yeah, thanks, El. I see Fahad has a question, so maybe we can have him speak first. I think you're muted, Fahad. I'm trying to unmute you. Fahad, I think you're muted.
Hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I'm grateful for your presentation. And you mentioned Fort Mac. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and we like to host you for an event because few people can hear a message and poetry the way you said it. Where do you teach? What university?
Mount St. Vincent University in Halifax,
In what state?
in Canada actually.
Oh, in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay. If that is the case, anytime you come to the holy state of Georgia, I like to host you for an event.
I can do something online too, like, and no
Okay,
charge.
that's
Like if
right.
the solidarity events, like just Tan can give you my email and
Okay,
I'm happy to do anything online. That's easy.
I will do.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you very much.
I
Okay,
also, yeah, Carol, I think that's really important. I just wanted to respond to the chat. Yeah, with Roddy, you were saying the context speaks matter. Yeah, I think it's really important that he's sensitive about it, but he like, but I think it's been very helpful, as well. And when he like encouraging him to speak in particular ways. So I totally agree that like, and he's right that often we see this all the time. Like when Palestinians say something, it doesn't matter. And then, oh, a soldier said it happens. Now it's real, right? So like as if Palestinian testimony doesn't matter and only matters when like an Israeli speaks over them. And I think that is an important context. But I think it's also helpful when there's a context in which you can talk about turning away from Zionism. And so, yeah, I just wanted to clarify about that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a really
thanks,
good point.
El. I also wonder if you could reflect, I mean, you talked a lot about your trip to Palestine and some of these reflections. How did, if you want to reflect a little bit on how your trip to Palestine maybe strengthened your activism, what ways did it feed back into the art that you were making or,
Yeah.
integrate some of that in your
Um,
movement?
I think first of all, like I always say that I felt like people in Palestine were like fully realized adults in their activism, like just because self-determination was just at the core of everything. And I think it also clarified, like we are organized, but often like people are human and there's a lot of clashes in organizing, right? Like ego, different things. There's a lot of conflict that comes up. And I think just sort of being grounded in what, like, we're not organizing for online clicks, we're not organizing for clout, we're organizing for life and resistance in particular ways. And I think that's been grounding. I think attending Sabeel has actually been really grounding. I mean, now you're gonna get my like rant about online, but I like online is useful. Obviously, it helps us disseminate messages, but I think people get caught up in the online social media loop. And if you're not grounded to anything, I think then people are just in this endless cycle of like witnessing horror, feeling despair, retweeting the worst things you've ever seen in your life, and then arguing with each other over who's lefter than who. And, like, and that becomes almost its own thing that becomes disconnected from what you're actually doing. And I think it's actually really important, I've discovered. And it's the same thing with prison work. Like if you don't have people that you love and that you feel accountable to, and that you have a relationship with, and then you're doing what you're doing for that, I think you can very rapidly sort of lose the plot a bit. And then it becomes about other things, like how much, yeah, like particularly like, am I getting attention? Am I getting clicks? And then when people are mad at you, if you're not grounded in why you're doing it, and accountable to those people, I think it also can really shake you and make you like more afraid. But I think if you are very clear, like I know what Issa is experiencing, I know what Omar is experiencing, I know what people Sabeel do every day, I hear from them. So compared to that, it's not that hard to stand up in my university and demand that we do a statement on anti-Palestinian racism. Like that's so small. And then I say to people, like, this is so small. If we can't do this small thing, like I think it just grounds you more. And I think that's been really important. I was an activist before I went, so I can't say I'm like ever being particularly afraid. Like I've always sort of gone for it, but I think that feeling, I feel more, yeah, I think through Sabeel, I will say I feel more of a foundation. And then I've noticed as time goes on and as people sort of spiral more and more, like I think that's been I feel very blessed to have a foundation where even like weekly you're connecting to other people. You're connecting what you're doing to like real ideas and concepts and real people. And then I think that gives you like a more solid base to move forward from and understand like the battle is long, like so even when you're trying to be creative and do things, it's like, yeah, you're just doing little bits, you're just chipping away at the wall piece by piece. And that's okay, because that's what people are doing in Palestine as well. And like when we all do it, we will all move forward. So I think just having that perspective is important. I think it just transformed me in all kinds of ways. Like I'm not a big believer in like transformative experiences. I'm always like, respond quickly. But in this case, I think it was a transformative experience. Just like, I mean, I think everyone talks about this as Sabeel. Like when you're gonna go and people think you're crazy for going, they're like, what are you doing? And that in itself made me want to go. Just the idea that people thought I shouldn't go is always how I am. I'm like, oh, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna go. And then of course going and having the experience with the people, seeing the land, seeing and then being able to share that with people. What I've noticed too is that because other people are scared to go, that you went is important to them. Like it's like they feel by proxy that they are able to do something. So for example, my department, it's like they didn't go, but because I went, it's almost like it shines on them. So people feel like they can participate through you. And I think that's been important. And then I will say that because so much attention has been on Gaza, the West Bank, I think people often don't like even really understand, like people don't really get the geography too, right? So even like being able to bring the West Bank into events has been really important because there's a lot of focus, rightfully so, on Gaza and the genocide, but that is allowing stuff to happen in the West Bank with like less attention. So I think it's been important to be able to have that piece of the West Bank brought in and be able to speak about that and like make those connections. So those are just some things, but I think ultimately I will say that I think all organizing is about relationship. And I think we cannot forget that. We have to remember that the heart, like some stuff I'm sharing you where I'm just like being confrontational, but there's also like a lot of love. And if you don't feel that love and solidarity on a deep level and a human level with the people that you're working with, not for, but with, then I don't think your organizing ever goes anywhere. I think it has to be driven by that.
Well, thank you all. And I know you've participated a lot in our sessions, even with Sabeel Thursday service, and you've always given us like really, really good tactics and just throwing it out randomly sometimes, and we're like, wow, this is such a good tactic. So this is just a suggestion, like just as part of our discussion, that I think it would be really cool if, Omar and you and Sabeel can work together on making like a list of creative tactics over the last, 2 years that we've been able to do, and then have that as being suggestions for people. We can either put it in the upcoming book or share it as a separate resource. But I think maybe that's something that, if you're interested in working on, we can definitely
Yeah.
connect
Yeah,
after
I
the call to
think
doing this.
organizing is also like, I don't want to say fun because we're doing serious things, but yeah, it is. It's
Mhm.
human, right? Like you should eat together. Like I think one of the things we do is we just show up and protest together, and you should like eat together, break bread together, like play together, talk together, hang out together. And then when you're organizing, it's stronger. And that's also a creative piece. And then like when you're doing that, you sort of kick around ideas and you're able to pull those. And then you're like, that'd be really funny if we did this thing. You're like, hey, why don't we do it? You know what I mean? So like a lot of the creative ideas just come from talking to people and like giving some time to activism instead of just being like, okay, it's really linear. Like this is an event, we're going to protest outside, which we do too. But I think it's letting yourself breathe and have time with each other. I think everything comes from that. And then, yeah, you're like sort of kicking stuff around together and you come up with stuff to do.
Mhm. That's amazing. And I see other people are asking if how they can access your poetry online, if there's like links that you can put,
Um,
you
I
know.
mean, I can send you the poems. These aren't really published yet. I like eventually I'm supposed to be working on a book, but I'm not
Mhm.
there yet. they can buy the Sabile collection when it comes out. You can get that one
Yeah.
in there.
But any of your previous
Published
books,
my
right? have
princess
had-
poems, to be honest. Like they're sort of one and done. Like I haven't read them since I
Mm.
did them, you know, but like, and that's another thing is I just write them for the moment, like, and then that's that.
Okay, amazing. Trying to see if there's other questions. Okay, I can see some people are, there's a lot of people who want to reach out to you, so maybe you can put your email
Oh yeah,
in
I'll
the
put my email in
sort
the
of-
chat.
yeah.
I will say on a very Sabile note, so the Black church here is being infiltrated, like the local like pro-Zionist groups have been really focusing on the Black church lately. And so we have a lot of historic Black churches, the Black Baptists, and they got like it's very clear that there's been movement that way. So we had to push and push and push. And in January, they finally agreed that we're going to be able to present on Gaza and the genocide in West Bank. So I said, well, aren't you in luck? Because I have gone on pilgrimage to Seville. So I am in perfectly placed to talk about this. And I will say that when I went to look at the verse in the lectionary for that week, so it's like January 17th or whatever, 19th, I think it's the 17th. Anyway, I looked at what the reading was for that Sunday, and it's when Jesus says, come and see. Like, and I thought that was like a nice harmony because of course come and see, go and tell is Sabile, and then the reading is when Jesus tells people to come and see is, and I'm like, okay, so things are kind of like working, like something's working here. So I was like, well, that's perfect because then I can make that the reading and talk about my experience with Sabile to this church that has been so far resistant to hearing about Palestine, but it will fit perfectly with the verse. So I'll just say that I was pleased with that being the verse and just how it all matched up.
Amazing. I see a question about the book. I can speak a little bit about the book. So Elle is one of the contributors, and she contributed a really, really amazing poem. And she's kind of reflected on this. So the book is it's basically Sabile trying to reflect on this current moment that we're in, which is, we've been doing delegations and pilgrimages since our founding, but pilgrimage looks a lot different amidst and during genocide, and we want to really reflect on what this means for, taking on, if people have read the Kairos document, the new Kairos document, taking on this call to reimagine what it means to be the church and what it means to be a movement, either outside the church, within the church, pushing against the church, in that moment. So this book is really essentially reflecting on these themes. Last week we had Hunter who was reflecting on one aspect of this. 2 weeks ago was another aspect. So we're reflecting on a variety of themes because a lot of the people who have come on pilgrimage with us come from so many different backgrounds and they bring in so many different talents and different wisdoms. And so we want to really draw on their wisdoms to kind of reflect on this profound moment and see, how do we rethink pilgrimage, and what does it mean to participate in pilgrimage, not just in Palestine, but also, a lot of the delegations, like Elle, already talks about how she's using her activism, using a lot of the strength and the being rooted in the movement back home, but also what does pilgrimage mean back home as well. And I think there's a lot of work that we are doing back home and also in Palestine. So this is just some of the ideas. We are working on either compiling it as a book or maybe something more creative. So this will be, we'll give you more updates in the coming year, January or February, once it hopefully comes out then. So that's going to be just to answer the question about the book.
The last thing I'll say is I also like for years I've wanted to run the Palestine Marathon and it's allegedly happening this year. So I'm hopefully going to be in Palestine in April. I was going to fundraise for Sabile. So if anybody wants to sponsor a mile of the Palestine Marathon. I also run, right? So I've been dying to do this marathon. I shouldn't say that. That sounds bad. I've really been wanting to do this marathon, and they say it's going to run. So I'm hopeful that it will take place. But obviously, I want to do it as a fundraiser. So I was planning on fundraising for Sabile and doing it. So
Barry has a question.
Thus
Yeah,
ropes by a running team because when we all train together, they by proxy are training for the Palestine Marathon. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to thank our speaker for the work that you do and the time that you've taken to speak with us all today. And a general question in terms of doing the high level advocacy work that you do. a lot of people that I encounter that really do have high ethics don't always have great practicality. And it seems that that's something that you have strengths in both of those areas. So, in terms of organizing and becoming involved in activism, how do you keep your own health, your own energy at a good level so that people who have good hearts and good minds don't, the expression I think is overused a little bit, but don't get burnt out in the process?
I think it really is the people. Like I go to like it's funny because I grew up in the church. Like I grew up Anglican, and then I stepped away for a long time just because I don't I actually am a kind of practical person. So on a daily basis, I'm not a person that feels like if my Achilles hurts, I'm like, I don't need to ask God about that. You know what I mean? And then when I was going to Sabile, I was trying to talk my mom around. This is a kind of a funny story. So I sent her the wave of prayer because I knew she'd like the prayers. My mom's very religious, like very church. And so then she felt, I think, that it was a call, and so she wasn't going to step in the way. And so my mom was actually the most supportive when everybody else was kind of like, she's gone crazy. My mom, I think, felt that like it was a call. But then this little tactic that I was actually using as a tactic obviously like backfired on me, because it turns out that I guess I did kind of get called like through Sabile. So then I began attending Sabile, and I have found that that's been really helpful. My weekend doesn't have to be Sabile, but I do find that just having this place where you can like clearly discuss things like what it means to have courage, or like what it means to be committed. Like something I think that was said at Sabile that always sticks with me is like this idea that we're not called for success, we're not called for recognition. You're just called for the work, and just you do the work when you see the work in front of you. And that's been really powerful to me. Like that idea of discipleship, I guess. That it doesn't matter if people don't like what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you don't get an award because you did it, or someone doesn't let you come and speak at this thing. Like, who cares? Like there's bigger things. So I think it's been helpful in that perspective. And I think that's really important, is just maintaining perspective. Like we're one piece of a giant machine. And so we put in what we can. Things will move on without us, so we don't have to martyr ourselves, but we have things to contribute, and everybody should to their full capacity. And it doesn't matter if people don't like it or if it doesn't change anything in the moment. Like you just keep doing it. And I think that perspective has been really helpful to me and really grounding. But I think just being around other people who are like, for me, it's just helpful. Like when I hear, people's whole families have been arrested and they're still going. Like this person has been kicked out of the job for 20 years and they're still going. I think it just gives you that feeling that you're part of something. And I think that's what organizing is. It's being part of something. And yeah, if you need to step back, you step back, because you're not the most important person on earth, and like other people will fill in for you. So like you don't have to take that on yourself. Like, oh, if I don't do this, like it's bigger than you. And I think that perspective I actually find really helpful. So I guess I'd say that. And then yeah, I think it's a sense of humor. Like you have to like keep a sense of fun and a sense of humor. And that's what I think creativity does. Like poetry, even when it's very serious poetry, it's still a creative act. Like I think that helps. Like, just seeing it as a puzzle you can solve in some ways, I think is helpful too. Like, how do I approach this, and how do I take many approaches? And if this one fails, let me try another one. And if this one fails, let me try another one. And 100 no's might make one yes. And I think that if we keep that perspective, then again, like we don't get as discouraged.
I think that was a really great way actually to end the session. I also can see why you and Omar get along so well. Omar has the exact same approach, and I think it's really good, and it brings so much to our movement and energy to our movement. Are there any last, things you want to say to us before we officially conclude?
No, I'm just, yeah, I think that like I think having a whole self is really important. And I think our activism can be a place where we do that. It doesn't just have to be serious. It can be like so many things, right? Because it's human life that we're standing up for. And when we see it that way, yeah, I think we just can put so much different things into it. I always feel that like everybody, the point of activism is everybody to their capacity, when they can, what they can. And that's what we bring, and it is communal. It's felt together. So I learned that in my community. I learned it in Palestine. And I think we can all do it. Like we do see it work. We chip away at things. I think there's long periods of despair, but we have to set ourselves like just winnable goals too. Like if it's just writing your MP, I write my MP so much and I just amuse myself with it. Like, like, and then I laugh to myself, and like, I'm sure she hates me at this point. And like anything that can give you like the thing that you do, like just do it. Like whether it's writing a letter, whether it's making a post, or whether it's like showing up, but going to your church, talking to people, and I don't worry about other people anymore. Like get a thick skin, I guess. And you do that by knowing that the people who love you will love you. The people that you're here for, you're here for. The people who are going to see your work are going to see your work. And that's who matters. And the people that can't get it in this moment, maybe they'll get it later. We actually had fascists come to one of our protests, like the thing at the Westin. I converted like 2 fascists, like just because they were new and they didn't know, and like we ended up talking to them, and like 2 of them sort of ended up realizing that like this thing they were doing with Canada Proud wasn't the way. So like, there's so many things we can do. Like keep our compassion, keep our humanity. Don't let that be taken away from us, and go from there. I don't know if that's helpful, but I make mistakes all the time. I make mistakes all the time. I'm also getting stupid conflict with people that I shouldn't get into. Like we're all human. That's just part of organizing. Like none of us are perfect, and we don't have to be.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us your wisdom and your beautiful poetry as well. Maybe I know we're like over time now, but I'll stop the recording and I'll share some actions just to end as people leave. Maybe we can have some actions to conclude.